It's one thing to listen to doom and gloom about food and fertilizer shortages, skyrocketing prices, the cost of living, or your job being outsourced overseas or eliminated due to automation. It's quite another thing to hear practical, immediately actionable advice from experts who can help you reduce the fear, anxiety, and burden of these problems. Tune in now to the Surviving Hard Times podcast from the Finding Genius Foundation with Richard Jacobs. Before we begin, a note from our sponsor. I'm Richard Jacobs, Executive Director of the nonprofit Finding Genius Foundation and host of the Finding Genius podcast. In late 2016, I was rear-ended at 65 miles an hour by a truck on the highway, which sent me off-road into a ditch. The impact of the collision gave me a concussion and other injuries. At the hospital, a CT scan showed that I had thyroid nodules, which turned out to be cancer. It was then, when I had a biopsy of my neck, that I realized even if I was a millionaire, I wouldn't want a second or a third biopsy due to the pain and the invasiveness of it. And appointments at that time for thyroid experts were 3 to 6 months out, and I was worried about dying now, even if that was irrational. So because of this, I've decided to raise money to conduct a literature review on steroids, on the causes of anxiety and depression, a condition that affects well over 50 million people in the United States and hundreds of millions worldwide. Our goal is to create a codex, a guide that reveals all possible treatments for anxiety and depression for people that live with the condition, or for loved ones that have it, as my wife and my son do. To find out more about our fundraiser, visit findinggeniusfoundation.org and click on current initiatives. And now, to our guest. Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Surviving Hard Times podcast, sponsored by the Finding Genius Foundation.
A returning guest, Miss Dawn Gallop. She's the founder of Number 9 Farms. We're going to talk about something interesting she's created called the Pantry Challenge. We're going to talk about canning. She's big into elderberry syrup, things like that. So welcome, Dawn. Welcome back.
I'm glad to be here, Richard. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, if people haven't heard you the first time, just give me a little bit about your background, and then we'll talk about what you're working on today.
Well, I'm a mom to 9 kids. I've been homesteading, like I said before, homesteading was a thing, or at least we didn't know it as that, since 1992. And I live on a large farm, and I do a lot of canning.
Okay. And what is this Pantry Challenge that you've come up with? Tell people about it.
Okay, well, the Pantry Challenge is actually not my thing. It's Three Rivers Homestead, but, anybody can participate. You can do it on Instagram, you could do it on YouTube, or whatever social media that you choose to use, and you make up your own rule. But what it is you start off in January and February, and it basically, you're not supposed to go to the grocery store. I mean, you can, if that's one of your rules, like set a budget of maybe $50, or I'm only going to buy milk, or I'm only going to buy oranges, whatever it may be. And you use all the things from your pantry and your freezers and your cabinets.
And the goal is to what? Do some spring cleaning, or to save money, or to eat healthier? Like, what's the goal here?
The goal is to use up the things, since most everybody that's in the Pantry Challenge, but not everybody, they can their own food. So a lot of times, you might can stuff. This used to be a thing, like when I was younger, back in like the early 90s and late 80s, I would can stuff and I'd be like, oh, I'm saving that. Like it was something that was so beautiful. But the goal is now you're to use it. And if say you have something in your pantry that you bought and you were going to make a cake or, something, you use it during the Pantry Challenge, because that way you're using what you've already got and you're not going to buy anything else. So one, you can save money. 2, you can use up things that you have. And also, like, things I like to do is I set new things I want to make. Like I had bought these pans last year and I hadn't got to use them yet. So my goal was to use these pans during the Pantry Challenge.
Okay. How long have you been doing it personally, and what are you noticing about it?
Well, this was my second year doing it, and it is a huge commitment, because you definitely use a lot of the stuff. And what I mean by that is it's a lot of dedication to it, and it's enjoyable. It's fun. It's nice to know that you using up things that would have been on the shelf maybe for a while. And also you get creative, because you come up with other soups, or you come up with other menus that using things that you have. And it also pushes you to be more of a survivalist, more of a, keeping things simple. Okay, well, I don't have cheese, but let me think, what can I do to have that flavor? Oh, I've got.
Oh, so it's like practicing for a time when you might have to use the stuff in your pantry, like all this talk about.
Yes, exactly. You that way also. Okay, so you say you have some freeze-dried peppers that you want to use. So I want to make some pepper soup. So I'm going to use those freeze-dried peppers in my soup because I want to make sure that I know what I'm doing with all my stuff. But we worked hard preserving all these things and, saving them or whatever. It's nice to use them.
But why is it so much of a commitment, as you said? What's difficult about it? What's fun about it? What's difficult about it?
Well, when I say it's a commitment, because, it makes you work harder in one way because of the fact that, on a normal basis, I like to bake bread, but I'm so busy with the garden and I'm so busy with working at the farmer's market that I don't have a lot of time left. And I'm tired and stuff too. So it makes me say, okay, I'm making bread every day during this pantry challenge. That's what I mean by a commitment. Like it really make you be committed to what you're doing.
Okay. So what did you notice? Like, what are some different feelings that you had as you did the pantry challenge? Maybe when you first started, maybe there was some moments during it that were difficult. What do you remember?
Well, every time I loved every day being able to cook and be in the kitchen all day because I would dehydrate foods. I would use the freeze dryer too. I do that anyway, but during that time I was doing things like that. I came up with a lot of good meals. Everybody enjoyed it. And things that were difficult, it was just really wasn't difficult. It was more like you were pushing yourself to use okay, well, I've got these macaroni noodles and I've got a little bit of chicken. I used up chicken that was in the freezer from 2020, things like that. And it wasn't freezer burned or anything. So it made you feel good because you were using what you already had.
Did you calculate how much money it saved you?
No, I did not. I'm not a numbers person. I know my husband, and he asked me all the times, how many did you make? I said, well, I don't know. I didn't count them.
Okay, let's see. Did your husband do any calculations on it, or did you just go away and say, leave me alone?
No, but he realized because we actually went through some really difficult times here during because the last paycheck I actually had was $12.16. So we actually really were on an extreme budget, and we learned a lot from that you do need more than what you have already stored up. And flour is something that I don't think you can have enough when you're baking breads. And I never bought a loaf of bread during the entire pantry challenge, and you really need a lot of flour.
Okay. Did your family resist you, or were they happy to go along with it? They didn't know any different? You just thought different things?
No, they didn't know any different. All my husband kept saying was, I'm going to gain 20 pounds from this pantry challenge, because I guess he feels like he's eating more things, I guess.
Interesting. What did your kids think about it?
Oh, my kids love it because I made tortillas, things like that I would normally just buy.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, everything homemade, I'm sure tastes a lot better.
Yes.
So what other lessons did you learn? You can never have enough flour. What else did you learn from doing this challenge the first time you're applying this time, the second time?
Well, the first time, I was new to it. And of course, having to figure things out. And everybody's, like I said, sets their own rules. So I really craved oranges. And you know how the old thing is you got an orange in your stocking, say 100 years ago, and you didn't. It was a great thing to get.
I craved orange a long time ago.
Yes, in your stocking, you're 100, maybe 100. Even my parents did it to me, and I never figured out why would you put an orange in my stocking. And now I know why. Because during that time of year, if you don't have that vitamin C, your body craves it.
Oh, really?
So,
did you crave oranges, or what happened?
Yeah. Well, think about it. If you can't go to the store and you want an orange, because if you can't go to the store, you can't just go buy an orange.
Right.
So your body starts craving things that you wouldn't. So I know now that I've got to have a lot more orange juice frozen in the freezer, because you want to keep it in the freezer because it keeps the vitamin C. But if you freeze dry it, it may keep it. I'm not sure about that one, but I do know that if you can it does degrade the vitamin C.
I don't know if you remember when you were younger, did your parents or any grandparents or anything talk about anyone getting scurvy or having real problems? Yeah,
they did talk about scurvy before. But, that was kind of a rare thing once. That was more like during the colonial days. It was more common.
Right.
a lot of times they say the sailors drank apple cider vinegar to help with that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. What else, how did it change your daily routine to cook only from the pantry versus shopping for stuff? Did it save you a lot of time?
It did. It did save me a lot of time. You know, you just like the night before, like most of the time what I'll do is on a Sunday, I'll sit down and think about what I have in the freezer, what I have in the pantry, and I'll say, okay, we're going to do spaghetti because I got plenty of noodles, I got plenty of hamburger, or I'm going to do chicken and broccoli. You know, I freeze dried some broccoli, or I have some frozen broccoli, things like that. I would set a menu up and just go from the things I have. And if I didn't have it, I figured out ways to create it.
How about the canning process? Did anything degrade in taste or flavor or any of that, or was it all really good?
Oh, no, it's all really good. In fact, like the tomatoes, all of it's so good. I mean, I haven't bought spaghetti sauce in so many years, and it's just wonderful to have it on the shelf, already ready for you at any given time. Okay. It's a lot of work to prep for it, you know, but when your tomatoes are coming in, you know that I had to set rules on myself, basically, and say, okay, I'm going to make tomato soup. I'm going to make tomato sauce. I'm going to make stewed tomatoes.
Well, tell me about what are some of the things that people need to know if they're going to do some canning? Like, what are some of the tips and tricks or traps that they have to deal with?
Well, the thing with canning, it's really very simple. And a lot of people, I try to tell them, I encourage them to, you know, it's really simple. And you want to get your supplies. If you have never done before, you're going to need a water bath canner, or you can take a regular pan. Another like a deep pan, and you can even put canning rings together with wire, and you can make a tray because you don't want the jars to sit down on the regular bottom of the pan. They need some way that they're not touching the bottom of the pan.
Okay.
Then there's some other things, you know, there's supplies. You're going to need some lemon juice mostly, or citric acid. Those are some of the things you would need. And start off with making jelly or jams. Those are the easiest things.
Yeah, why are they easy to do, and what's something hard to do, and why, and what are the easy ones to do, and why?
Well, honestly, I don't find any of it difficult, but I know starting off, maybe people would be more scared to make like meat.
Like who? Oh, meat. Okay.
Meat, yeah, like a meat. Yeah, you know, my southern accent.
No problem.
Stuff like that would be easier to do. Not easier, but that would be probably the scariest thing for people to do. But the jams are easy. They just, Richard, I'm telling you, it's all simple.
Okay. What have you seen people have a hard time with? It's just the fear of, again, things like meat being okay, you know, months or years later? Or is it, you know, the canning process itself, there's not really much difficulty to it?
Exactly. The canning process is not difficult at all. The thing is, you got to know the times and your altitude. So like if you live in a higher altitude above 1,000, your pressure changes if you're using a pressure canner. So like meats get pressure canned. But now there's a lot of things going around, you know, now on YouTube about people don't have to use, they can water bath can everything, because years before we had pressure canners, you would actually like pressure can meat for 3 hours. Not pressure can, water bath can it for 3 hours.
Water bath can, what does that do?
Okay, so water bath canning is just water and you're putting the jar into the water. Whereas pressure canning, it's all under pressure. You're actually using a pressure canner, and it only has about 3 inches of water at the bottom of the pan, and you have your jars inside, and then it builds up pressure inside the pan.
Okay, I gotcha. So there needs to be some positive pressure. Like I thought you create a vacuum when you seal these cans, but you're creating positive pressure when you seal the cans?
Well, I don't know what that means.
Okay, all right. No, I just didn't know if, like you ever have like a vacuum sealer, you suck all the air out and it,
Yes.
It goes around the food. With canning, are you trying to put more pressure in there, or are you trying to also create a vacuum and can things,
Yeah, I would say it does create a vacuum, because it does take out the air out of the jar, because like even when you're water bath canning, you can actually, even with the rings on and everything, you can actually see the bubbles come out of the jar.
Okay, gotcha, getting all the spare air out of there, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. Do different substances have different lifetimes once they're canned? Like how long would meat last versus vegetables versus other stuff?
Okay, so now this is a very controversial question, but here you go. I actually am acidified food certified, and I had to actually go to North Carolina State University, and I did 8 weeks of what I call microbiology. And during that time, I had the guy that actually wrote the book for the FDA and the USDA on these things. And he said that everything is good indefinitely if it's hermetically sealed. Okay.
Yeah. But to get hermetic seal must be very difficult, right?
Well, that basically is a hermetic seal.
I haven't canned, but I'm sure if I did it, I might mess it up the first couple times. Maybe get a good enough seal.
No, boy, Richard, you just got to clean the rims of your jars. And when you put your lids on in your flat, you want to kind of make it a turn just with one hand, not super tight, just one little turn. And usually you'll get a good seal because the lids are really good lids now.
Okay. Once you can something, can you put it in water to see if any bubbles come out to see if you did it right? But how can you check to make sure it's done properly?
Well, if it seals, then it was done properly.
Okay.
Yeah. If it seals, now, as long as you've got the right temperature. So say you're doing a jam, it's 10 minutes in the water bath canner. So then when you pull it out, and also jams have a lot of sugar in them. So they're what they're called safe food. That's all through being, working at the farmer's market.
Why are they called safe foods, though? They have a lot of sugar.
Yeah, because they got a lot of sugar in them. Plus, they're acidic. So anything that's 4.6 and below is what you're looking for acid in foods. And then anything higher than that, they become a base.
Oh, the pH of it. I got you. Yeah. But I guess though making it acidic will keep bacteria from getting in there and stuff because it's the acid. Gotcha.
Yes. And that's why I say with meat, people are more intimidated by canning meat because they don't they're scared of botulism and stuff. But honestly, if you do it correctly, everything's going to be fine.
Okay. Oh, excellent. Have you gotten any of your kids into it, or they're like, oh, Mom, you do it. We don't want to do that stuff.
Yes, that's what I've gotten. But now what I'm getting from them is I really wish I had learned this because my oldest is 36. And he's not canning, but he's really gardening now, big time.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really nice,
Yeah, it is. It's nice to see that.
Yeah. Well, that's great that you passed that on to at least one of your kids so far. Okay. So what, with your work, are you canning just for your family, or are you doing it now for other people and selling it to them? What is this number 9 farm stuff? What are you working on personally?
So basically what I do is I make jams and jellies, dilly beans, garlic, pickled garlic. Those are the things I make over at the kitchen. So I actually rent a kitchen in Escanaba, Michigan, and I can all the foods that I sell at the farmer's market.
Oh, okay, cool.
Pickles is my main thing.
Mm-hmm. So is that, I guess, all right, so you do that commercially and for your family. That's really cool. That's very interesting. Do you have a big following of people wanting to learn how to can on YouTube and stuff? What is there a lot of interest from people to do canning?
Oh, well, yes, there is, but there's so many, other YouTubers and that do canning as a regular basis. And I just kind of do whatever's going on the farm for the day, You
have to have a can-do attitude, right?
Yeah.
It's a bad joke.
No, it was good.
I've heard the Mormons, they're encouraged to store up food for 6 months or a year, and they probably do a lot of canning. I don't know if you've actually seen that, but I would guess that group does a lot of that, right?
Yes, they do. In fact, some of the books I have are from the I think it's LSU. What is it?
Well, the LDS, I think.
Yes, the LDS. Thank you. And they have some wonderful books on food storage.
Interesting. I figured they would know a lot if they've been doing it for many generations or years. So it'd be a good resource for you to learn. Yeah, that's really cool. Oh, have you, I guess you've taken classes from canning experts, like you said? The guy that wrote the protocols for FDA?
Yes, that's what I had to do in order to sell pickles, because pickles are a big deal. They really are. In the class, when I was in the class, there was people from all over the world in that class, because if they say you were in Brazil and you were going to sell, I'm just using this example, you were going to sell pickled garlic to someone here, you had to take the same class because you got to know about the acid in the because you're taking a thing that doesn't naturally have acid and you're making it acidic.
Okay. What are the shelf lives of various canned goods? Are they very different, or does anyone know? Pickles, versus meat, how long do they last canned?
Well, see, I'm not the best person to tell you that, because in my eyes, everything lasts forever. But then I have other people say, "Oh my gosh, it's out of date." But to me, it's not out of date. And in fact, my neighbor one time gave me baskets full of corn in jars. I mean, not in jars, in cans. And that was way out of date. And she said she couldn't, because it was for the food bank, and she couldn't use it because they weren't allowed to give it out. But I'm still eating this corn. And that was.
Do you have to put a date on it when you can something? Is that a requirement?
I put the date on only for my own thing, but yes, I do. If I sell something, I have to have a number, and also it's basically the day that you canned it. Everything has to be a product line.
Who determines how long the dates should be on canned goods?
Well, according to my inspector, it's 18 months for the pickles, but pickles last forever. But according to my inspector, have you ever eaten something that was canned for 10 years or 20 years? Are there world records of people that have eaten stuff that was canned 50 years ago? That's something crazy. I don't know about that, but I've seen a guy on YouTube that ate a canned bread out of there that was really old, 75 years, and he actually ate it, and it was rancid. It was, yeah. I was even ugh. But we had a jar of green beans that I found in all the mix from 2013. And we ate those not too long ago. So it was almost 10 years. And they were perfectly fine. They taste just like brand new green beans.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. If you look at the Guinness Book of World Records, the longest canned food that anyone's eaten. It's probably that guy.
That's a good one.
Yeah. That's crazy. Huh. What are some of the problems that could happen? I heard about botulism. What if a can gets dented? Does that mean it's no good? What happens there?
Well, the reason that they don't want you to eat a dented can is because there could be a small indentation in there that air could get in, and then, it could cause it to go bad. And then also, have you ever bought a bottle of something and a little piece of it is hanging out? Say you bought, I don't know, olives, and one of the red little pieces was hanging out the top of the jar. Leakers is what they call them sometimes. And those types you don't want to because bacteria could get in that way.
Okay, I see. So denting could be a problem. I don't know, anything else that can mess up the canning process. I guess you wouldn't want to store them in a cool, dark place. I'm pretty sure. Anything else that needs to be done to make sure the cans are okay? Does the humidity of the room matter? Or as long as it's cool and dark, it's okay?
Yes. You don't want a lot of light to them, because the light can degrade the color, and also, sometimes maybe the texture, but not so much, probably. Just mostly the color.
Okay. So now there's very little that you see can go wrong with these things, right?
I mean, there's a lot of things that could go wrong, but I mean, if you're doing it properly, like I say, you're following directions, using times, getting your air bubbles out you can use your little wand debubbler to get out the air. You should be good.
Okay. Gotcha.
You're putting me on the spot here, Richard.
Well, yeah, I'm just wondering about the nuances of canning, because like I said, what are people afraid of when they first do canning? When you help people to do it, what are some real common questions or fears that people have?
Well, okay, so making a jam. I taught a class making a jam, and they couldn't understand. I mean, because you got to stir it the whole time mostly, and they said their arms got tired. But most people are intimidated because when they do it, they think they might kill their family or something because they didn't know if they did it properly. Those are some of the things that I've heard people say.
Okay, I understand. So what's your plan for this year, next year? What direction are you going with things? Are you just going to keep going, or do you have new, products that you want to create? Where are you going with all this stuff?
Right now, I'm growing all the peppers again. I make some of the pickles that I make are mango habanero, and so I've got a Carolina Reaper pickle. So those peppers, you just can't go to the store and buy. So I grow all the peppers and everything that goes into all my products, and I've got them going right now. They're already probably 6 inches tall.
Oh wow!
Less than Milwaukee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Are there any other preservation methods that, is there anything that cans can't store properly? any foods that need to be stored in a different way?
As far as, you mean like if you dehydrated items or freeze-dried items?
Yeah, like are there some things that you just can't can, or it just wouldn't make sense to can?
Okay, well, I don't personally can noodles. I don't can rice. I don't can butter. But there are people on YouTube who do. And also, I don't can any milk products or cheese products.
Okay.
The thing is, with me being acidified food certified, I can't, what they call those rebel canners. I could not do that myself because then I would be going against the USDA on my license, basically, for selling my items. You see what I mean?
Right. I got you. Okay. So is there some things that they say don't can because either it doesn't make sense or it's just there's better ways to do it?
Yeah. So like pumpkin butter, or pumpkin that's solid. That is what it is. When you're canning that, you can't really penetrate. They say you can't penetrate to the center because it's so thick, and there could be a possibility of bacteria there that couldn't get killed from the temperatures. So then that's one of the things they do not like you to do. Of course, I can't sell meats because anything pressure canned, I cannot personally sell those.
How come?
Because they don't allow those types of even like green beans. I can sell dilly beans because they're pickled green beans, but I cannot sell green beans at the farmer's market or anything because that is a total pressure can food.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So potatoes, I couldn't sell canned potatoes either, or things like that.
Well, because they have to be pressured.
Yeah, they got to be pressured here. Yep. I couldn't sell meats or anything like that unless, of course, they were frozen and they came from my farm and they were processed in a facility that was, licensed.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Huh. But where are you where are you going with all this stuff? Are there new items that you want to offer for sale, or you just want to sell more of what you have? Like, what's your goal for the next year or two?
Yeah, I'd just like to keep on going on the same thing I'm going on.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I'll tell you another can-related joke. Someone once said, "Success comes in cans, not in can nuts." I thought you might like that. It's the only can that's
a good one.
Yeah.
And also, you wanted to talk about elderberry syrup too?
Oh, that's yeah. I saw that mentioned. I've heard elderberry syrup is good for like coughs and colds and all that. But you tell me, what's the reason to produce it?
Well, the elderberry syrup, I started making that around like 2013, 2014, because we always found that it was always beneficial for us. Like sometimes I made elderberry tinctures and stuff, and I always gave it to my kids. And then I was like, well, let me just see if I can sell this, So then I started selling it at the farmer's market. And that's how it all went. But basically it is. They figured out, a virologist has figured out that it actually coats the cells. And if the virus cannot penetrate the cell, it can't enter to replicate. So that's why you want, to drink the elderberry syrup or elderberry tinctures. But there are controversies about that too, because they do find that people with rheumatoid arthritis or lupus, they'll see some other autoimmune diseases like Hashimoto's. Those types, you don't want to, take elderberries because it can actually accelerate the immune system.
Okay. So do you have it at home or do you sell it?
I
what's
do.
The role in your life?
Yeah, I sell it on my Etsy store, and I sell it at the farmer's market, and I sell it now at my other farm. I had, because I've told you before, I'm on a new farm now. I had a bunch of bushes because there was a lot more there. But when you're harvesting the elderberries, like you can harvest the elderflowers like the one time, but then the next year you can harvest the elderberries. So you can make elderflowers.
What about other berries? What about blackberry syrup or blueberry syrup? Or do any of them have medicinal properties like elderberry?
Yes, but they would be more like for vitamin C or certain vitamins. But this elderberry is just phenomenal. I mean, it goes back even to Hippocrates and how they had all kinds of, healing things for it. They would even make compresses with it.
Okay. All right, one last question about the cans. The lining of the cans. I've heard sometimes, the lining may not be good for you, depending on how it's lined or sprayed. Have you run into any problems with that?
You mean lining of the can?
Yeah, the inside of the can, the lining. Yeah, like something. I guess they had BPA in them, or
Oh,
supposedly,
no,
or
you talk.
change liners.
Okay, so you're talking about like a regular canned food, like grocery store canned food.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that is true. You definitely don't want to buy. You want to make sure they are BPA free because a lot of times, mostly they put like tomatoes in the cans that are lined because they're so acidic.
So
And
what do you do with your cans? How are yours different? You don't have to have those liners and stuff.
because mine are jars.
Oh, you
They're
get jars. Okay. I was wondering when you said canning. I just think of like metal cans. I didn't think of
yes,
jars.
yes. So like what they would do they call those retort. So what they would put all the cans and they would send them into it's like almost like a little train and it goes into this big giant thing. And that makes it where they seal the cans.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, so I had to learn all that in my 8-week microbiology class.
Okay, so you put everything in jars, so also people can see the product.
Yes, and that's why I said about the light, because the light would affect it if you have it out on the shelves. It would, change the color.
I got you. Yeah, integrated in some way here.
Uh-huh.
Well, very good, Dawn. Where can people find out more about your work? Where can they go?
To go to YouTube. Dawn Gallop at Number 9 Farms.
Gallop is Gallop.
Uh-huh. I always say gallop like a horse.
Okay. All right, very good. Well, Dawn, thanks for coming back on the podcast, and it's really interesting what you're doing. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Before you stop listening, ask yourself, what are 1 or 2 useful things you heard on this podcast that can help you overcome food and fertilizer shortages, skyrocketing prices, the cost of living, or your job being outsourced overseas or eliminated due to automation? Please like and subscribe and tell your friends and family about their Surviving Hard Times podcast. We're all going to need help now and in the near future.